Reverend Don Lewis, coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today we're going to continue our little tour of my library with another selection, this time of a set of volumes that I consider one of my most interesting possessions. And it's this set here, which is called Out of This World, the Illustrated Library of the Bizarre and Extraordinary. And this was published by Purnell & Sons, which is a British firm, and distributed in the US by Columbia House in the 1970s. It first came out in 1976. This particular set dates from 1978, so I was 15 years old when I got these. And I loved them then, I love them now, and let me tell you what they are. They are a collection of absolutely bizarre stories out of British press. They are, in some cases, historical stories. In some cases, they have to do with metaphysics. In some cases, they have to do with true crime or weird social situations. Everything that could be described as bizarre is kind of included in this compendium. It's a very wide range of subject matter, and it's all reported in tabloid style. But it's also all true stories, at least in the sense that they were not made up for this purpose. When we talk about metaphysical stories and things like historical hauntings and so forth, of course what's true and what's not is a subjective matter that one must decide for themselves, but the stories were not created for this purpose. And if we look at this particular volume, this is number 17. Some of these stories that are included here. Here is a story on Father Divine, who was a prominent Christian evangelist of the earlier 20th century, who was involved in a number of scandals, and a very interesting figure. You can see it's called Department of Deity Tricks, which is the kind of sensational headline they use, but the story is very interesting. Here's a section called Orb and Scepter, which has to do with the role of traditional regalia of monarchies. A very strange thing to include, you might say, but very interesting. It's an extraordinarily eclectic series of books. There are 24 books in the series. They include everything from the mystery surrounding the Grand Duchess Anastasia and Anna Anderson in the 20th century, to things out of antiquity, ideas about pyramid power and aliens and all sorts of weird 70s things. All of which, if you look them up independently, you will also find they were absolutely not created for this, even though they are reported in, again, that very sensational style. So for a person such as myself, who loves eclectic things and bizarre trivia, this is an ideal set of books. There are articles on people like Rasputin. There are a lot of articles actually dealing with the First World War and the Russian Revolution, which were still much closer to the common mind in 1976 than they are today. A lot of stories dealing with World War II, but many other much older stories, all very interesting. One of the ones that I particularly remember is the story of Hope Faithful, who was the center of a murder or suicide mystery, I believe it turned out to be suicide, in the 1930s, who is otherwise, as far as I know, completely forgotten, but she shows up in the pages of this book, and her story is very interesting, as is her name. And that's the kind of thing you find in it. So this, again, is another one of my more beloved parts of my library. Let's look at a second volume and see what else is here. This one, as you can see, has a lot to do with space and science fiction in its pages, and but also other things. This one, called Pennies from Heaven, has to do with the weird phenomena of unexpected objects falling out of the sky. And there have been a number of these historically. Things like a sudden rain of frogs is something that has absolutely happened historically. Not exactly well explained, although there are a number of theories, and the article goes into all of them. This is an article on the disappearance of Agatha Christie in the early 1920s, which was a fascinating mystery at the time. The already famous author disappeared without a trace, leaving some cryptic things that led to suspicion that her husband might have murdered her. And then, a little bit later, she showed up at a spa claiming not to remember what had happened. And there's been at least one movie, maybe more than one movie made about the story, but this is a very interesting report on it. Again, it's presented in a sensational manner, but all of the facts are there. And so it's very interesting. So I hope you found that, well, interesting. And next time we will examine another volume or group of volumes, and until then, may your blessed be.